I would say online students are facing some of the challenges that come along with not having that really clear structure. If you compare that with students who are typically taking courses in a classroom setting, the online students don't necessarily have that regular structure of coming to a physical location at a specific time and date, having that really clear reinforcement from the instructor about here are the main points that were covered, here's what's expected of you before you come to class next time. And so typically the online learners really have to learn to self-regulate those goals and the time that they're using in order to reach the course objectives. I would say for online students, because they don't have that classroom structure, they need to be the ones in control creating that structure for themselves. So for instance, they might be spending 3 hours per credit hour in an actual course in a typical situation. They would want to think about for themselves, maybe it's a 3 credit hour course, so maybe there's 9 hours per week that they need to schedule and structure. And ideally, the more that can be structured, the better. So for instance, a student might say, Monday evenings or Wednesday afternoons, I consistently have some time available. If a student can then set aside an environment, have all their materials ready, and then just treat that like any other appointment, showing up, doing the work, and getting into that routine, that can really help in setting up the structure, keeping on pace with that course. Breaking things down can be really helpful. It may be that in a given week a student has to write several discussion board posts, a paper, go through course materials. That doesn't all have to be done in one chunk. And so if a student might anticipate there's 10 hours of work to be done in that week, rather than looking for just the weekend where there's a lot of free time, that can be broken down into more specific steps. And so a student might have maybe 30 minutes in a lunch break, or 15 minutes here and there. If there's specific short-term goals that a student can work on, it's really easy to keep on top of things and feel a sense of progress with the course. One of the biggest things is to tune out distractions, tune out your ability to even go to an outside website or to use your phone. And so for some people, as long as you aren't maybe having a family emergency that you need to be aware of, turn off your phone. Because it's one thing to put it on silent because you can still check it. If it's off, you need to go through the whole hassle of turning it back on to check your texts. You're not as likely to do that. And so you get that opportunity out of the way. Another thing to consider is even though you're taking an online course, some of the work you're doing might not have to be online. So perhaps you log in, you get the materials you need, you see you have a discussion board posting. Maybe you turn off your wireless for a little bit of time so that you can just write the post so you're not distracted. And there's also some tools, different ones available for Mac or PC, but websites such as keepmeout.com, and there's a lot of others. It's no specific tool, but you can tell it for the next hour, don't allow me to go to any other sites, or to always block a certain website if you know you're going to be distracted by that. And so those forms of external regulation that you can be in control of sometimes will help you as well. I would say a key thing with balance is to not try to multitask things. If a person is trying to be a family member, a parent, a spouse, a person who's enjoying recreation, and a student all in the same period of time, typically there's not really full satisfaction in any of those things. So for instance, if you're trying to watch a movie at home with your family while writing a discussion board post, the post isn't going to be done efficiently, it'll probably have some errors in it, and the person isn't going to enjoy that time with the family, and so it feels like they're not really fully present in either. So rather than doing that, really carving out time that's specifically focused on those things. If you're with your family, if you're having leisure time or social time, focus on that entirely. If it's school time, even if it's just 30 minutes or an hour in any given period, you need to be focused entirely on that. Tune out distractions, you'll get a lot more accomplished, and you'll feel a lot more fully invested in whatever that task is. Planning is hugely important, and you don't necessarily have to do your planning online, although you could. And so depending on your preferences, you want to think about what am I going to use consistently. So perhaps it is a paper and pencil planner and you carry that around and you perhaps take that first week of classes, you write down your deadlines so you really have a sense of what each week and each month will hold. For other people, you might want to experiment with an online calendar. There's lots of different ones you can use. It can be an Outlook calendar, Google Calendar, there's other ones as well. But basically, you want something that you can consistently access. So one of the nice things about some of these online calendars is you can make an update on your phone, and then you can find it on your work computer and your home computer, log onto a library computer, it's there as well. The key is you want to visualize basically how much free time you have, the deadlines that are coming up. And what I would urge students to do is not just to put, let's say, week 5, midterm, but also to think about week 4, where do you need to be personally to be prepared for that, week 3, and so forth. Integrate some backward planning into your calendaring so that you can really get a sense of where you need to be. To whatever extent possible, I think a study environment should really be set up so that it is motivating yet free of distractions. So for instance, you want to have a space typically that has some sense of organization, some sense where you can focus mentally because the space physically represents that clear, organized space. And it can be tricky to do. Sometimes you have limited space, but if you can just carve out, whether it's a corner of a kitchen, a corner of an office or a bedroom, a space that you really associate with working and focusing, a place that when you're there, you know that you're not on social media, you know that you're not in the middle of cooking dinner, whatever it might be. I think you can associate the place with a sort of mental activity that can help you as soon as you arrive at that location to be a little bit more efficient and focused during that period. I think the location really is going to depend on what burden or investment of time is associated with getting to that place. If it's going to take you half an hour or an hour to get parked and to arrive at a location on campus, you might want to think about, can you be more efficient at a library, a local library close to home, or the place where you live? And that's a choice that really is going to vary for every individual, because some people, they really like to create that clear demarcation between this is home and this is school. And so if that's you, that's perfectly fine. But really then you have to think about the time that's going into commute to a school location. Take that into account. And then of course when you arrive at the library or the classroom, wherever it is you're working, use that time for your studying. Be able to get right into your routine rather than, well, I'm going to check some email, I'm going to look on Wikipedia for a few things. The more you get sidetracked, the less efficient you're going to be, and that time really can be wasted. I would say, especially if it's towards the beginning of a course, take some time to experiment. Typically, your courses are going to pick up the pace as they go along. Your first couple of weeks, hopefully, are going to give you a little bit of breathing room. So one of the best things you can do is to self-monitor your behavior and keep track of the environment you're in, how effective you are, what your study goals were, and how much of them you met. Because you probably will find some people like a little bit of buzz of activity that helps them tune out distractions. Other people start to hear conversations and all of a sudden you're part of that conversation and you're not as efficient. Some people like it really cold, really warm, really bright, really dark. And if you can make note of as many of those factors in a given environment as you can, maybe try 2 or 3, really track and compare. By the end of those couple of weeks, you'll know where your best location will be. And so students who are procrastinators, it's something you don't want to confuse with prioritizing, which is important. But really, students who might say, I know I should be working on this, but I'm choosing to put it off toward a later date so that I can, and fill in the blank for yourself as a student. So for some students, it's because I'm overwhelmed, I'm not really sure if I can do this, and I don't want to deal with these feelings of fear and anxiety and frustration, so I'll deal with those feelings at a later point. For other students, they really lack interest in the subject. So this paper topic is really boring, I wish I didn't have to take this course, and so they'll try to put off that material so that perhaps the time is more focused later on so they can feel a sense of motivation from that perhaps. And other students, sometimes they're just frustrated and they think, why was I even assigned this? I don't understand the point of it. The professor has unclear or unrealistic expectations, and so it's almost a sense of this hostility. I'll show that professor by not putting my effort into the work. Unfortunately, study after study, as well as just experience after experience, tends to show that overall, students who put things off produce lower quality work. And so unfortunately, you might be saving yourself some of the hassle in the short run, but in the long term, you're not writing your best work, you're not learning things as well. You might even be able to get the grade, but the key is, are you going to learn that long term? And if you're taking a course that's going to help you develop your thinking skills or your core knowledge for some discipline, if you're procrastinating, you're really going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage for that. And so I think for students, it's really important to analyze, why am I thinking about putting this off? And is it possible to use some time management tools to get some of the same sense of satisfaction I might get from procrastination while still being effective? So for instance, a student who might want to work under pressure because they're motivated that way might instead take that end of term paper or a number of discussion posts, break it down to smaller pieces with their own incremental deadlines, and then say, all right, got an hour tonight, and I'm gonna just type as much as I can and get that out of the way, and I need to meet this deadline for myself. That's just one example of how to get there. The benefit of that is that can also meet some of the concerns a student might have who's overwhelmed, who says, I'm not really sure if I can do this. Well, if you put it all off and try to do it all at once, it probably will remain overwhelming. You won't produce your best work. But if you break it down, start early, contact the professor if needed, and just do manageable steps at a time, that's a great way of building confidence while not procrastinating at the same time. There's a definite difference, even though a subtle difference, between multitasking, prioritizing, and procrastination. I think the real question is you have to be absolutely clear about what your motives are. So if your motive is, I have multiple deadlines, multiple things that are due, and I need to make decisions about which is most important in terms of my grade and my learning, and which deadline is actually even just due first, and what things do I need to place at a different time so that I can get everything done. That's not really procrastination. But if instead you're saying, I don't think I can do this, I don't want to do this, I'll deal with this later, I'll just, get to that at some later point because I'm just not interested in doing it right now, that's typically more of a sign of procrastination. One thing to look at is motivation. Typically, if you're prioritizing and planning, there's some motivation in there. You want to be as effective as possible, maximize your performance. Procrastination, on the other hand, typically has a lack of motivation. And so if you just find yourself not really having a purpose for doing the work, not having an investment in the work or desire to do the work, typically that's more related to procrastination. You're going to see that your engagement in the work and desire to do it is typically lower as well. We do. At the Dennis Learning Center, we are here for all students at Ohio State. So whether you're an online learner or a classroom learner, or a little mix of both, whether you are fresh to college or you've been here for a number of years or are returning, we do provide that support. And the whole idea of having it be one-on-one is that it's going to be a really individualized and personalized approach.